Namaha and welcome back. Now let's turn our attention to the consonants, which are called vyanjanas in Sanskrit. Here's where it kind of looks really complicated. There's 33 different consonants, but it's very systematic, this chart. And if you take the time to kind of learn row by row in a sort of systematic way how the consonants are organized in the chart, it's going to help you not just now, but throughout your studies of Sanskrit. So the first thing to notice right away is that the consonants are arranged in 5 different rows. These are the classes or vargas of the consonants. There are 5 rows on the charts going horizontally across the chart. Vertically for now, let's just pay attention to the first 5 columns and then we'll pretend like the last 3 columns don't exist. We'll get to those later. The first 4 columns are what are called the stops or sparshas. The 5th column is the anunasikas, the nasals. Stops are the sounds that are made, like the name says, when air is stopped from coming out your mouth by your tongue or other parts of your mouth touching various parts of the mouth. Like when you say the letter ta or in Sanskrit, you notice that the T sound is made by your tongue touching the teeth, and then there's a sound that's made by the air moving first across the vocal cords and then out the mouth. Ta. Right? Nasals, on the other hand, are made when your tongue stops air from coming out, like the stops, but then the air comes out your nose instead of your mouth. So when I say n, right, the N is being made by my tongue touching the teeth, but the air is released out the nose. No. See if you can do it. Usually when the nasal is involved, it'll make your nose kind of vibrate and tickle a little bit. Can you feel it? Right. So that's the stops and the nasals. Let's focus on these. In Sanskrit, basically, there's 5 different locations where your tongue or other parts of your mouth are going to touch to make a stop, and then the nasals as well. So there's 5 classes or vargas for each. And each of these are organized as the 5 rows in the chart. The point where your tongue touches your mouth, this is called the point of articulation. And these are organized in the chart from back to front. So the first row is the Velar class, which is called kanthya in Sanskrit. All of these involve closing at the back of the throat. This area is called the velum in Sanskrit, the kantha in Sanskrit, velum in Latin, kantha in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit 4 stops are k, k, g, and g, and then the nasal ng. Secondly, we have sounds that are made where your tongue touches the soft part of the roof of your mouth. This is called the palate. You can kind of feel it with your tongue. The talavya in Sanskrit. The palatals in Sanskrit are the 4 stops cha, cha, ja, ja, and then the nasal nya. Then the 3rd class is something that's special to Sanskrit and to other Indian languages. These are called the retroflex sounds. Sometimes you'll hear the word cerebrals. Murdhanya in Sanskrit. Murdhan means head. That's probably where you get cerebrals. How do you make these retroflex sounds? Well, you take your tongue, then you try to feel a bumpy ridge on the top of the inside of your mouth behind your teeth. Can you feel that ridge? Now move your tongue even back just a little bit so that your tongue doesn't touch your teeth or your gum area at all. That's where the retroflex sounds are made. And they sound kind of like a Western T or D, but kind of not really. Da, ta, da, da, and na. The 4th class is called the dentals, the dantyas in Sanskrit. These are a little easier to make. Take the tongue and stick it right on the teeth. Now don't be shy about sticking out your tongue. That'll make sure that the sound is a pure dental. The 4 dental stops are da, ta, da, da, and the nasal is na. Stick out that tongue, don't be shy. Right? Finally, the 5th class is called the labials. It's made by a stop that's made by your lips, or the labia in Latin. In Sanskrit, these are called the oshtyas. Oshta means lips. This is where the sound is made by both lips touching together to make the sound. Ba, pa, ba, ba, and ma is the nasal. Notice that there's no option in Sanskrit for your lip touching your teeth like we see in fa. Fa doesn't exist in Sanskrit. It's not pronounced phalam for fruit. It's phalam means fruit. It's a very common Hindi speaker mistake. Phalam not allowed. Anyway, with these 5 classes of vargas and stops, I wanted to draw your attention to how each of them has also 4 different sounds that are followed then by the nasal. The 4 sounds are all organized. It's not random. There's 2 properties that a stop can have. A stop can be either voiced or unvoiced. It can be either aspirated or unaspirated. Those are the 4. Now, what does this mean? Well, both are about what happens to the air when it's released to make the sound. When the letter is voiced, that means that the air is passing and vibrating the vocal cords down here. When it's unvoiced, it means it passes through without vibrating the vocal cords. So in our first varga, the velars, the letter ka is unvoiced, whereas the letter ga is voiced. Right? There's a little trick to figuring out if you're voicing properly or not. Take your finger, gently touch your voice box, and then start to make the sound of the letter. If you feel the voice box vibrate before you say the vowel that comes after, it means it is voiced. If it doesn't vibrate, that means it's unvoiced. Notice that the vowel will always be voiced, so you have to kind of hear it before you make the vowel. Try it with ga and ga, right? Ga, no vibration. Ga, vibration. Okay, so you've seen that difference. The next difference we're going to have is between aspirated and unaspirated stops. Aspirated means adding a puff of air with the letter. Unaspirated stops won't have a puff of air with the letter. So again, in the Velar class, ka is unaspirated, but ka is aspirated. Mostly you'll notice there's an H, kind of h sound that gets added to the letters. That's the aspiration. Like with voicing, it's kind of a trick to figure out. There's a trick to figure out if a letter is being aspirated or not. You can take a piece of paper and hold it on the very edge of the paper and put it close to your mouth. Then say the letter. If the paper moves dramatically, then it's being aspirated. If it doesn't, then there's no aspiration. So you can try it with your paper. I don't have one with me, but you can say ka, ka. Does it work? If you can make the paper move, it can make it work. In each of these 5 classes of stops, we're going to have combos of these 2 features, voicing and aspiration, giving a total of 4 stops for each class, plus the class nasal. So in the Velar class, here's how it goes. Ka. Here's how it's written in Devanagari too. Take a second to sort of familiarize yourself with the Devanagari if you can. Ka is both unvoiced and unaspirated. It's a Velar. Now, no vibration, no puff of air. The point of contact is at the throat. Ka. Ka is unvoiced, but now it's aspirated, and it's still a Velar. No vibration, but there is a puff of air. Ga now is voiced, but unaspirated. So there's a vibration, ga, but no puff of air. And the point of contact is still going to be your throat. Ga now is both voiced and aspirated as a Velar. There's vibration, there's a puff of air, point of contact is the throat. Ga. Incidentally, the voiced aspirates in each of the 5 classes are going to be the hardest for you to pronounce, probably for Western speakers. It's okay, it just takes practice. You can overdo it to start with, no one will mind. Finally, we have for each of the classes, the class nasal. In the Velar class, it's nga. To pronounce nga properly, you have to pretend like you're saying the ng and ing, like walking, talking, eating, nga, right? It occurs very rarely by itself in Sanskrit, and it appears generally before one of the other Velar stops, like anga, for example, which means body or limb. That's going to be a nga sound. So that's a good start to our consonants. We managed to learn about the Velar class, the kantyas. We've distinguished between voiced and unvoiced, aspirated and unaspirated stops, and we know what nasals are. Ka, ka, ga, ga, nga. Try practicing these on your own now a few times over and over again. Use the UBC Sanskrit site to learn a few words that begin with these letters. That's quite useful, actually. Listen to how my dad pronounces them. Then take some time also to learn how to write them. We'll be practicing writing in the next section, but it's always good to get a head start. Now, when you've got those in your head, let's move to the next group, the palatals. Thank you for watching. See you in the next clip. Punarmilamaha.